Hi, welcome to Velpro. Sorry about take two, but I made a boo-boo on take one, and you deserve the best I can give you. The story about where CO2 goes and how bad it is and what we can do and what technology is providing some research and development that's being looked into for carbon dioxide abatement for the man-made sources is really this whole story because there's a lot of media bias, and I don't want to look at that. I'm only trying to find numbers. But the consensus, the scientific consensus, if you can, is that CO2 levels have risen over the last 50 years, and the cause appears to be man made. However, as CO2 is the basis for all life on Earth, we should look at that two times. And I'm going to leave a link to Biocarb, who discusses carbon dioxide. Because it's apparent that if we did have the technology to eliminate carbon dioxide completely from the atmosphere, all plant life would die, and so would everything else. So that's not such a great thing. And greenhouses also inject extra CO2 into their enclosures to raise the CO2 ambient level and promote plant growth, which I found really interesting. And I'll leave a link to Fifth Seasoning Gardening because they discuss that. But that doesn't mean we should be dumping tons of pollution into the air. We need to be as clean as possible, and I believe that, especially as a cyclist. There have been great advances in carbon dioxide abatement. Now, this is actually disassembling the molecule and turning it into oxygen and carbon molecules, which is fabulous. It's also possible to store them. And we're going to talk about that real quick. Because R&D continues, research and development's always going on, and there's great ideas. And they're working on some underground ideas, and I'm going to leave a link to that. And there's also great ideas in catalytic approaches. And I have worked on abatement programs using catalytics, which is a very high temperature furnace, and it pretty much disassembles everything. As far as a practical catalytic approach, we need to look at it because that also requires a lot of energy. That's why I think this underground idea is kind of interesting. But I see it as a science project at this very moment. But plasma and electric inductors also work, and then they're not that expensive to run. During the Cambrian eruption, I'll leave some links. During the Cambrian eruption, when multi-cell creatures began, CO2 levels were about 10 to 20 times higher. And I put both numbers because I've read both, but this article says 20, and I'll leave a link for you. Also, in the Pleistocene, CO2 levels were at their highest level, and Scientific American has that story because they say it was over 400 parts per million, and I'll leave that link. New Scientist, Forest and Climate Change has a great story, but they omitted submarine volcanoes. And we know that submarine volcanoes account for about 75% of all material generated by volcanoes. So if you leave that out, you're leaving out 75% of the story. So World Atlas kind of covers that. So I'll leave a link to World Atlas, who does discuss this. Okay, moving along. I'm going to continue a little bit with the stories, and I want to talk about cloud seeding and the effect it has on local weather patterns. And that'll be coming out in the next few days. Man-made methane gas is a consideration, and it's a greenhouse gas that smells really bad, but it's useful when recycled and gathered, and it can be mitigated. And we're going to talk about that because it's not only industry or landfills that produce methane. We're looking at livestock And I'm going to tell you some very exciting things that are happening in the world of livestock. So we don't have to feel bad uh, about having a pork chops. Okay. And like I say, we're going to discuss cloud seeding again, abatement programs, solutions, all sorts of good stuff. But I want to focus on solutions because anyone can talk about problems. I'm going to be bringing in technology companies and farmers, agricultural experts that talk about stuff. It's going to be kind of fun, and I'll be putting these links into the stories. Anyway, we'll be doing new products, and of course, plenty of health. And I want to continue with the genetics because that is a part of health. So thanks a mil for watching. Please don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. It is important, and I do keep an eye on numbers. And don't forget to comment because I really do appreciate the comments, and they're very good. I must go. Thank you.